So my name is Angella Watson, and I actually work for Farm Service Agency. Michael will talk about NRCS, and I'll talk about Farm Service Agency. I work at our state office, and I'm the beginning farmer coordinator, among a lot of other things. But that's my primary role for today. And in that role, I love getting to work with both beginning farmers and all of our underserved producer groups, helping them to navigate how to get started with FSA, but more specifically, how to get started with USDA. FSA just happens to be the first stop in that process. And also how to work with a lot of the other stakeholder groups that we work with, including Kentucky Department of Ag and various extension services. I love to connect producers with their local county office so that they can learn, they can start to develop that personal relationship with their local office and help them understand programs better and things like that.
Okay, Michael.
All right. Of course, I don't think you've met Angela, but of course, Angela and I have worked together for some time. So Angela knows me. Of course, you know me, Tanya, but since you're recording, I'll go ahead on and introduce myself. I'm Michael Zachary. I'm the outreach coordinator. And of course, my role is to provide outreach and services to all of the state. Of course, I work at the state office as well, as does Angela. I work with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and my goal is to make sure that we're reaching out to historically underserved farmers, and also providing opportunities to work with entities to form new partnerships as well. And also, I am the beginning farming champion for NRCS, so I work along with Angela, and I've got to get a report to her. So basically, I'm one of the liaisons, if you will, between the customer base and our service center. So trying to get them involved and linked up with our service center. But as Angela stated, NRCS, we're more the technical side of USDA. So the first stop for a beginning farmer will be FSA. So even when they talk to us, we will then get them over to our partner agency, which is FSA, and then they will then in turn right back over to us at NRCS. So we work hand in hand.
Okay, so I've get a lot of questions of the process of a farm number. And I think sometimes people get confused as to, they feel like they have to own land in order to get an FSA number. And could you explain that and also walk them through the steps of if they lease land, how they can obtain a farm number, and also if they own an entity, the process?
Okay, sure. So the process starts the same no matter how you farm. Your first step is to connect with your local service center. You can start that process with me if you're not sure where the service center is, but the local office is who's going to actually do that work. And so for producers who aren't sure where their local office is, our customer-facing website, farmers.gov, has a service center finder. It'll give you directions, name, address, email, directions, all of the things to your local service center. And it also has on the beginning farmer page some information on how to prepare for that visit, how to get started. We have some fact sheets for that. But the basic process is the same. You're going to go to the office and tell them that you need a farm number. And they're going to start asking some questions. And one of those questions is, do you own land? And so if you do own land, they're going to want some sort of proof of ownership. It can be a deed, it can be a PVA record. It can be, there's a lot of different methods of associating you with that piece of land. If you don't own land, though, and you're a tenant, as you ask in your question, you are not exempt from getting a farm number. You are absolutely allowed to get a farm number. So you, again, would visit your local office and just tell them that you are leasing land. You can be share leasing the land, which generally means you and the landowner are divvying up sharing in the risk and sharing in the proceeds. Or you could be what we call a cash rent tenant. We don't really care if cash changes hands or not, but what we basically mean by that is you have control of that land to do what to grow what you're growing and to do the things that you're doing. In other words, you have all of the risk as well as all of the reward from that land. And in that case, you're going to tell your local office, again, you're leasing land and whose land it is. If you're not sure whose land it is, because maybe it's an absentee landlord, or there's you're working with one person, maybe that's not the person of record with us, we can start to narrow that down using our mapping, GIS services and things like that. You can say, yeah, I've got that farm out on such and such road, and the person I'm dealing with, his name is John Smith or whatever, and we'll start to work through that. And once we know what land it is, then we will go through the process of getting you attached as a tenant on that land. Usually what we need, if you are a tenant with a written lease, bring that written lease in. That is gold and we're ready to go. However, I know a lot of the farmers that I work with over the years, they don't have a written lease. We do a lot of things with a handshake around here. And so that's fine too. We will just contact the owner and verify that that person is in fact a tenant on the land. Because again, we don't want somebody, claiming to be on land that they're not, trying to get something, but people just aren't going to do that, but we have that process that we have to have. So you can either bring in a written statement from that landowner already, or we'll reach out to them and get that information. It's absolutely okay to get a farm number when you are leasing land. Let's see, what else did you ask? Oh, the rest of the process. So while you're in the office, you're going to provide some basic information, customer data information to get put in our system, and then we'll go through the process of doing a farm.
Talk about the
Yeah,
entity
Michael.
real quick before you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. So yeah, if you're an entity, it's the same process. You're just going to tell us that the entity is who is farming the land. Sometimes an entity owns the land, and again, just bring in a deed that shows that it's in that entity's name. But a lot of times the entity is like, I own the land, but my entity is going to be the one doing the farming. It's going to be the one getting the credit, the sharing in the risk and getting the reward. And so that's fine too. We'll make that entity an operator on that farm. But the first step would be to get the land, whoever owns the land, get that straight first. So if I own the land, I'm going to bring in a deed. I'm going to show the land is mine. And then I'm going to say, hey, but I operate this as a business. My business name is blah, whatever entity name. And my tax ID number is, and then you're going to provide the EIN for that business and request that that business be the operator of the farm or the tenant. Businesses can lease farms too. That's absolutely not a problem. We do have to have a tax ID number for anyone who is requesting benefits. If you are an owner only and you're going to get all the benefit, like say in an entity's name, and you don't feel comfortable giving your social, that's okay. But if you're a member of that entity, we're going to have that. It's just tax purposes. The IRS requires.
Do they have to bring in articles? Do they have to bring in articles of incorporation as well?
No. We do, it can be very beneficial to us to get all the records straight, but no, you do not have to bring that in. We will take a document that we call a 901 or a 902. Either one of those documents, the producer is going to certify to us as to the organizational structure of that entity, who has signature authority, who has the shares, who provides what contributions, and we're going to have the person who can sign for that entity sign those documents. So no, we do not have to have those articles unless there's some sort of a dispute, or it just makes it easier sometimes.
So what's a 901 and a 902?
It's the form we use to capture a business organization structure. And it's required. It's what we call a farm operating plan. And so it is required for a lot of our programs. And basically it just captures the information of how a producer is farming that farm. So if it's being farmed as an entity, it's going to capture who the members of that entity are at each level, what their shares in that organizational structure are, who can sign for it, and things like that.
Okay. Now, Michael, a lot of people always ask, how does FSA and NRCA collaborate, and why do they have to go through FSA first in order to work with NRCS?
Yeah, so like we said, one of the things with it being a government entity, FSA is the one that gives us that farm number. So kind of like that legal process that Angela was just talking about, for us to know that you own the land, you own the property and everything like that. So they're just doing the basic legal steps of it. NRCS, as I said before, we're the technical side of it. So though we offer programs and everything like that, before we can even get to the programmatic part, we have to basically certify you are who you say you are, and you own what you say you own. So we don't handle that part of it. We use FSA to do all of those, all of that documentation. So it's kind of like they, even though they also do programs as well, because they have a program department as well, but they're like the administrative part to say, okay, here you go. They are ready to go. Now they can participate in your process. So we have to go to FSA first to get them qualified, or like a pre-screen, if you want to say it, something like that.
It keeps the producers from having to do things twice also, since we're under the same umbrella, so to speak. Our part under USDA, that USDA has a lot of agencies under it, but we are sister agencies, NRCS and FSA, and we data share a lot, and it really does help streamline things for our producers. Like Michael said, it lets them focus on the technical aspects, and all of our programs that need that technical assistance, they come alongside us and do that. And so in return, we handle the administrative side of payment eligibility and, making sure your customer data is in the system right. And then they don't have to do things twice.
Got it. So, and also I want you all to really share why it's important for them to keep their adjusted gross income up to date with FSA in order to work with NRCS.
So with the adjusted gross income provisions, that is a statutory requirement. Congress has put that into place for almost every FSA program and NRCS program. Like I said, we are sister agencies, and so we share a lot of regulations when it comes to our programs. That is considered an annual certification. And FSA does handle the paperwork. We handle the administrative side of that, which is why they have to file that certification form with us instead of with NRCS. And again, they use those flags from us, and it just helps keep things streamlined because we already had the systems and the processes in place to verify that information for their programs as well.
And they get it through the mail or email, or do they get information or get notification of both? Through email or mail when there's time for them to re-sign up or renew their AGI?
We generally renew those as program benefits are requested. So we don't necessarily we don't have to keep an AGI on file if someone isn't participating with us. So the notification is usually going to come with the enrollment in a program. And since you specifically ask about NRCS, generally, if they are enrolling in EQIP or CSP or one of the NRCS programs, correct me, Michael, if I mess the process up, but they usually will tell the producers, hey, by the way, you need to go to FSA and update some paperwork. They have this great letter. I just saw one of them today even that says you need to go by FSA and update some paperwork, and here are the things you need, and it checks which ones you need. And if they often just bring us that letter and say, NRCS told me to come see you, and we take over from there.
Got it.
Correct.
So does that
go
ahead, Michael?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if they don't update it, that does have them be ineligible for NRCS practices. For their programs.
Correct. Yes. So the vital, it's very critical about that, because once again, it's eligibility. So as Angela was saying, they keep the administrative paperwork for us, but when you start talking about the AGI, want the people that you're talking to, for them to understand eligibility. And this is something, if you're going to participate in our programs yearly, if you're reapplying, our year starts in October. Of course, we use a fiscal year, not the physical year. So we don't start in January, but you can apply throughout the year. But let's say, for instance, I'm going to do a scenario for you. Let's say you go see Miss Angela in April, and you're getting your farm number and you're doing everything, and then you come and see us, and you want to do an EQIP contract. Well, EQIP ranking for this year is over, right? But you can still apply for next year's EQIP, funding. So you go in and you're doing everything, and you fill out your AGI, whatever, but you fill it out right now. Well, when October comes around, guess what? You have to fill it out again, because now you just went into FY 2025. So even though you filled it out in 24, you're not going to get that program in 2024. So since you didn't get the program in 2024, you need to come back and redo the AGI. And normally, as Angela was saying, you will get a correspondence to tell you, hey, you need to update that. But if for some reason you don't, just know that could hinder you or stop you from being able to participate if you don't get that form in. So it's that October of the year starts the new year, and you want to make sure that you have that form filled out. So just want to give a scenario.
Good. I didn't know that as well, because I was thinking, because I get a lot of questions, they fill out their forms, but I didn't know that NRCS fiscal year starts in October. So yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, we run on the same fiscal year, and that AGI form, you only have to file one per year, and that form makes you eligible for all of FSA's programs and all of NRCS's programs. So it's not like you file a new AGI for every program that you want to participate in during a fiscal year, but we do have to have, it is only good for one fiscal year at a time. A lot of our other forms that we use between the two agencies are considered a continuous form unless certain things change, but that AGI is not. That one it has to be calculated annually.
And also I want you all to explain, like on the EQIP application, it'll ask for, do you have an SFA farm record? A lot of farmers will mark that no because they don't understand that question. Can you explain an FSA farm record?
I think that basically just means a farm number. Are you registered with FSA, right, Michael? It doesn't require any kind of additional anything other than having a farm number registered with us, right?
Yes. And so wording just, is worded from long time ago. Is really a farm number. Sometimes people get confused. Tracks, sometimes you'll hear us say, do you have a track number, farm number, FSA, so you'll hear different things and it kind of throws the customer off, but it's just a farm number. Do you have that FSA, not a record? That record means the farm number. If they say, do you have a track number? They just still talking about it's the same thing. Because sometimes you can have it separate, you can separate your land by tracks. Is that correct, Angela? You want to just share that?
There can be a lot of confusion with again, I mean, the federal government, we love acronyms and terminology that doesn't always make sense in the outside FSA or NRCS world. But a lot of times, so when our producers are talking about a farm, they generally mean all of the land in one area, right? And they may own 3 farms in their mind because they own one that's, on this road, and then they own another 30 acres that's 5 miles up the road, and they own, they lease land in the next county over, and to them that's 3 farms, but to us it might be 1 farm and 3 tracts. It just depends on how the ownership is configured. So that can get confusing to them as well. And there's other terminology that sometimes we might use somewhat interchangeably, or we don't use it interchangeably, but it seems like it should be interchangeable to people who don't work within the agency. And so that's one reason I always, as the beginning farmer person, and I know Michael does the same thing, we work at the state level, and I love working with all of the producers that I get to work with. But one of the most important things I can do in my role is to encourage them to reach out to their local office when the time comes to get the process started. simply because we are a customer-facing agency. Michael's agency is as well. We work one-on-one with our producers, and so a lot of that terminology that, although you can fill things out online, you can access a lot of our applications, a lot of our forms are available online to the public, and you can get that information. The people in our county offices are the people that can help you wade through all of that, some confusing and sometimes even conflicting terminology, and we can help each other. You know, FSA can help you even understand some of the stuff on equip if NRCS happens to be in the field that day or something, because we work together a lot. And so that is so important, is for our producers, especially our beginning farmers, to start getting that relationship with their local office started, because they're an invaluable in-person resource.
Can you explain what a tract is?
Yeah, so for FSA purposes, a tract is going to be any piece of land that's under, generally it's land that's under one deed, and any land that's owned by the same people and operated by the same people, we are required to put into one farm number. So that's why you may have 3 tracts in one farm number, because you have, like I said, in that's that kind of example I used, you have one piece of land that you bought on, you know, where you live, and you bought that 10 years ago, and it's in mine and my husband's name, and we operate it, right? Well, then 3 years later, I buy 5 more acres up a mile up the road, but it's the same ownership and the same operatorship. And so when I take that deed into FSA, I'm not going to get I'm going to have 2 tracts on one farm. I'm going to have one farm number, and it's going to have multiple tracts on it. And so as long as it's under the same ownership and operatorship, we are required to put that under one farm number.
Got it. So Michael, what are some of the common misconceptions across the board as far as small and urban farmers participating in NRCS programs?
Yeah, so NRCS, or actually USDA, kind of changed the terminology. We went away from, so you started hearing a lot about urban farming, and you still hear the term urban farming. And so we were going through this debate about what would be considered an urban farm. Is it an urban area or whatever? So they just really went back and just call it small farms, because you can live in a rural area but only have an acre, right? Which would be the same thing as if you're living in an urban area and only have an acre or less. So to kind of get some of the confusion down, they decided to say, let's not just call it urban farming, let's just call it small farms. Because we were having a lot of challenges with distinguishing the two, meaning that, okay, do I have to live in Lexington in order to have an urban farm, or be in, you know, Louisville, or you know, this metropolitan area or whatever? But it really had to go, we really changed it to the size of the farm. So it really should be called small farm, but you'll still hear people say urban farms, but they're actually talking about the size of the farm.
And Angela, is it difficult for SFA to transition to this new line of urban farmers coming into agriculture?
In some ways, yes, it has been a little bit of a challenge. And I should point out too, while we're specifically talking about small farms, there is a common misconception that a farm has to be at least 10 acres or at least something in order to get a farm number. That is not true. That 10-acre rule, so to speak, I think gets confused because that has to do with taxes, like through your local tax PVA or whatever, but it really has nothing to do with FSA. We can give you a farm number on anything greater than 20 by 20, I believe, because that's the size our mapping system will draw. That's as small as it will draw, is what I was recently told. So that is definitely, there is no size that it has to be in order to get a farm number. But back to your original question about the difficulty of transitioning, we are absolutely open and welcome to farms of any kind and any size. And And I love the variety that we get from a lot of our beginning farmers and our more urban, if we're looking at the literal location definition of being in an urban area, we get some very creative farming and I love it. But a lot of the programs that were in the Farm Bill that we are currently under, because although the Farm Bill expired, we have a 1-year extension that we're working under right now. Those programs were not in fact designed for these small farmers. And so and more non-traditional farmers too, you know, so we are trying to work within the program structure because it literally takes an act of Congress to change those things. So we're trying to work within the program structure that we have and fit our urban farmers and our small farmers and our non-traditional farmers into that existing program framework. We do have some programs that have always been more easily used for these types of farms, and those are the programs that most of our non-traditional farmers want. It's crop insurance for small farms and vegetable crops and orchards and things like that. But it has been a little bit of a change in mindset to see how we can fit these programs in.
Has it been difficult for NRCS to draft up plans for conservation practices for urban and small farmers?
Yes, and I think I was glad to hear Angela say what she said, because I think FSA probably have even a little bit more flexibility than we do at NRCS with programming, because like we can take 1,000 acres and we can build you a plan like that. They're so used to that, they can do that in their sleep. But when you get somebody to go in a backyard and they only have, you know, a little, as she said, 20 by 20, it becomes a little bit more difficult, and we're trying to figure out those things. How do we help and become more aware that this is the direction that we're going into? So a lot of training, a lot of different processes being explored to see how can we help. So you have departments such as the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovation that gives us some flexibility to do some things. Now, they don't fall directly under NRCS, but they fall under USDA. And so what that allows us to do is to be able to send our producers and our new beginning farmers to be able to apply for some of the programs that fall under that specific agencies' grants, and allow them to work with third-party entities that can do things that we don't have programmatic guidance for yet. So when you start talking about things such as say hydroponics or vertical farming and all of those things like that, some of the stuff that Angela might say that she'll see in an urban setting that we're not technically going to have any standards for, program standards for at NRCS, that's when we start using those, the Office of Innovation to help us, you know, try to help the farmer in any way that we can. So we began to start using our sister agencies and trying to figure out a way to, how can we help that producer? How can we help that farmer be productive in doing what they're trying to do as best we can? Because of course we're all in a transition right now. There are some things, as you know, other states have been a little bit more progressive than we are here in Kentucky. And we're looking at some of those things as practice standards, such as raised beds, low tunnels, and those things like that. That was not really big because that was the interim standards. But now many other states have been doing those. And so that's something that our new state conservation is looking at as you know, something to bring to Kentucky to adopt, to become a part of our standard practices. And I think that would help us be able to help people in that urban setting that's, you know, just doing small stuff, you know, maybe they're just doing flowers or whatever the case may be. We give them some more options. So yes, it's been a challenge for us at NRCS, but we're definitely taking comments from the field from you producers, from people such as yourself, and we're bringing them up the chain to see what we can do. But as Angela said, we're still under the Farm Bill right now, and we have to see what happens with this next one. But we know that it is a high priority for us to work with our small producers. So,
in terms of like conservation, where do you see farmers need to be more proactive, whether they're large scale, small scale, urban, as far as, taking the initiative? I think sometimes, a lot of people, yes, they do not know, but sometimes when they go in these offices, they may feel a little intimidated. How can they be more proactive to get their point across of their needs?
you want to go first, Angela? Or you want me to go first?
Whoops, you go, Michael. That's more in your wheelhouse. I have an idea, but you're probably gonna say the same thing I'm already thinking.
I think how they become more proactive. I think some of the things that Angela stated earlier. I think one of the ways, first and foremost, communication is key. I think, as she was saying, whatever your community, whatever county that you're going to belong to, wherever you're going to be farming at, is to make that visit and go and introduce yourself to them and say, hey, this is where I'm planning to do this or whatever. I just wanted to come and meet you all or whatever. I know that you're busy, and a lot of people are busy. Also knowing that some counties handle multiple counties, and so we don't have offices in every county, but some of the offices are sharing the load. And as you begin to just become more familiar with them and just asking them about the process, kind of like what you're doing right now, taking an opportunity even before you even start. As Angela said, if you go on the website and you go to that farmers.gov, there is a lot of information there. But I am aware that our farmer, is normally a senior. They're normally older, so they may not be as tech savvy. So I would encourage them to go into the local office and just schedule a meeting just to sit down and talk and say, look, I'm just starting, or I want to start, and I really don't know, anything about this. I don't know anything about this this process or anything about NRCS, FSA. Can you just give me like 101, NRCS 101, FSA 101, just to kind of walk me through a process. And I think that would be helpful if you're saying taking the initiative. Don't be afraid to go in there. We understand you don't know, because we are the technical experts. You're not. And so I would suggest that try not to have that fear. Don't go there expecting to know everything. Go there expecting to learn something, and of course, you have, if you're a beginning farmer, you have beginning farming champions. Angela is the head honcho, so you can reach out to her. But for NRCS, I'm, the beginning farming champion. So of course, you can reach out to me, and then we'll point you in the right direction. But I think when you go in the office, really asking them to just kind of walk you through a process, and be open to information. I think that would be a good start as far as being proactive.
Go ahead.
I think too, everything Michael said is spot on. And, also having an idea, like Michael said, we know that especially our beginning farmers, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so a lot of times it's hard to ask questions because you don't really know where to start. But one thing that can be very proactive, very helpful when you do come and meet with us or with one of the excellent stakeholder resources that we all work with too, is to have an idea of like a vision of where you want to go. So don't the question oh, I want to start farming. How do I start farming? Well, there's a lot of different answers to that question because it might depend on if you want to start farming honey with bees. That's a whole different way of starting and a different conservation need because you asked specifically about being proactive on the conservation side. But you may not know exactly what practice or program NRCS has that can help you do your meet your conservation goals, but you can know what your goal is. For me, if I was wanting to start with NRCS, I love pollinators, but I have no idea where the best one on my land is, best place to put one on my land, or if I'm even optimized for that. But I can certainly walk into my local office and say, hey, Michael, I would love a pollinator. Would you come out and look at my land and tell me if that's feasible and where would be the best place to put this? And hey, by the way, do you have a program that could help me pay for this? Because, FSA or NRCS, as Michael has said, they are the technical people. They'll come out and do that. They'll come out and walk your land with you and show you where your resource concerns are and be like, oh, hey, I can help with that. We have a program for that. Or maybe we don't have a program with that, but I know a stakeholder who does. And then the other ways to be proactive about any of your needs, as I'm sure you've already worked with them yourself, Tanya, our extension offices are great learning tools, educational tools for learning about specific crops, specific types of farming, what works best in what areas of the state. Because you may want to grow lavender, but you're part of the state, you're just not going to be successful at that, no matter how much you love the flower, right? And so sometimes you have to have an idea of, oh, I want to grow lavender, and then sit down with somebody who can say, that's great, but it's not going to be easy. It's not, how about we talk about this instead? And if so, the other, sorry, there's a lot going on. The other resource that we all use a lot and can really help with taking that big vision and breaking it down into goals that are more proactive is going to be K-Card. They are the Kentucky Center for Ag and Rural Development, and they are really great at helping streamline those goals. And then you can take that plan, that broad plan, and say, FSA, how can you help me with this? Or NRCS, how can you help me with this? And we're going to say, here's what we've got. Here's what we'll do.
And should they request their ticket? I hear a lot, the ticket number, in order so they have that verification that they did go into the office. And this is the second question, if they don't feel that their needs were met in that office, can they visit a different office in the surrounding area?
As far as like getting a farm number or getting program assistance and things like that, or just in general?
Both, just in general. Like, yeah, say if I live in Barron County, if I didn't feel like my needs were met in Barron County and I have my ticket number, can I go to another county and ask them for assistance? Or do I have to stay within that county?
You can request that your farm be administered by a different county office if it's more convenient, or if you've had an issue in the county office. I think Michael and I would both agree, if someone has gone into a local office and experienced some kind of issue, I would love it if they would just, and feel free to share this information, of course, I would love it if they would reach out to me first, and so that we can work through whatever may have happened and get them to an office that can provide the kind of service that they need. Or it could have been, a miscommunication issue or something like that. And we definitely want to be sure that we address any issues like that. So they could feel free to reach out to me at the state office, and then we can start exploring, from there, rather than just going to another office that might be nearby. Not that they can't, of course they can go into any office, but that would be a way of helping to address that issue that happened ultimately.
Yeah, I would echo that. And one of the things that we're trying to get people more doing more on our end, and I don't know if FSA is doing this as much. Back in the day we used to do it a lot. Angela, the receipt for service, I think that's what she's referring to, the receipt for service. So we're trying to get people, if not doing the receipt for service, we're actually using what we call conservation desktop. And so what that allows me to do is put you in as a customer, put you in our database and everything like that. So that way, anybody that goes into our system will be able to pull you up. So it doesn't matter what office you went to, now we'll be able to have it. But if you ask for a receipt for service, then definitely they can do that for you. But we are trying to make sure that we're tracking all of our new customers and, just trying to provide a better service as best as we can. But like Angela said, if you go into office, you run into an issue, you definitely want to send that up to us here at the state office so that we can try to address those concerns and make sure that we provide the best service possible.
Okay, the next one is equip. Can you explain, Michael? Because everything everybody thinks equip is just high tones.
Yeah.
Can you explain everything that is involved in equip on the application? And second, with you, Angela, how the CREP program works with NRCS, because you all handle the financial side of the CREP program, but also NRCS has to come and evaluate the land. And a lot of people think CREP is strictly NRCS, but the two of you work together in order for the CREP program to be successful.
Okay, you asked me a loaded question. You said everything that belongs
just in general, because I hear it all the time, equip high tunnel. But a lot of people don't realize that also covers conservation stewardship. If you have wetlands, just different, not so much as wetlands, but if you in an area that holds water, just different programs that equip offers to cover land.
So I guess, let me see, I'm trying to figure out an easy way to put it. So the equip program is not, so a high tunnel is just one of the ways to address a concern. Okay. And it just falls under the environmental program, which is equip. But equip can deal with everything from your soil health, your cover crops, all of those are equip programs. So when you think about equip, it's just dependent on what practice that you're doing. And so I think because there has been such a big push for people to get a high tunnel, they just automatically kind of marry the two together and say, well, if I'm doing equip, I'm getting a high tunnel. No, that doesn't mean that. You can do an equip contract and just do fencing. You can do equip contract and we just deal with your pasture, so all of those things fall up under that program. Or so just to say that everything that equip covers, I mean, it's a lot of things that falls under equip. And it's normally one of the programs that we use to get people started, but you don't have to start with equip. You can actually start with CSP if you've already been doing some conservation and we come out and we look and we want to just help incentivize you to do something else. You can start with CSP. It's just a little bit more stringent. We're going to be a little bit more the regulation is a little bit more stringent for you, but equip is a good way to get you going to learn how the government works, making sure that you meet the requirements for the financial assistance that you're getting to implement these practices in order for you to do conservation for NRCS standards. So hopefully that's a quick overview of it because it covers a lot.
So basically they should go into the office and ask what all is covered under equip.
So basically like what Angela said, I think the main thing is normally when people get contracts, when we go out and we do the field visit, I think, and she said it, and you and I have talked about this before, I think the best way to do it is like, I'm interested in the programs. This is what I'm trying to do. Let's set up a site visit. And when we do the site visit, we will see different resource concerns. And so you might have to do some some fencing, you might do some rotational grazing, you might do some water crossings and all, and that all will fall under equip, and you may not even put a high tunnel there, but that's all equip, and so it's really that visit, that farm visit is really key. And not only is it key that you do equip, but also we can come out, do a site visit, and tell you what all we see, and let them draw you up a plan and everything like that. And you say, you know what, I'm gonna implement these practices myself and not take any funding from us. And that's free to you, for us to come and do this technical assistance for you. And so conservation technical assistance, they can provide a plan for you, and then you decide, well, I'm going to do this on my own. So I think Angela nailed it on the head. That visit, that farm visit that we can give you is probably going to be the single most important thing that you could do, honestly, is get them out to your property and just let them walk and see what you got and what you're trying to do. And they may see some other things that you didn't even think about, like, it might be wildlife habitats that you're trying, that they may see you didn't even think about, or some forest management and stuff, all falls under equip. So.
And it's important to remember when you're thinking about that too, that both of our agencies, we are non-regulatory, non-reporting agencies. So having NRCS come out and walk your field and walk your farm, and if they say, oh, well, we noticed there's some erosion over here, and there's some ways that there's some practices that can be done. We can help you fix that issue. And you're like, no, I don't really want that. They're not going to go and then quote turn you into somebody. It's not like we're here to assist, right? So I know there's a lot of people that have concerns about that, and they're like, well,
Yeah.
they might see something on my farm that I didn't know was bad, and they might turn me in for doing something. No, that's not how we operate. And when to segue all that into your question about CREP, so CREP is just one type of CRP. We don't technically have CREP in Kentucky anymore, but we do absolutely have CRP. And as you mentioned, CRP is technically falls under FSA. We administer that program. We are the financial side of that program, but NRCS is our technical service provider, and we use the same practices that they use under all of their various conservation programs. And so NRCS often, if they're out doing one of these site visits, because all of their programs, I always tend to have to think of it more as not, ooh, although a lot of people are like, ooh, I want a high tunnel, let's see if NRCS will pay for it. That one kind of works like that. But most of the rest of their programs, and our CRP program as well, it's all about addressing that resource concern. It's what is your resource concern? Sometimes that means your resource concern is, I got a big old ditch washing through the middle of my field every time it rains, and it's washing away my soil, and it's doing all this stuff. And that's a resource concern we need to fix. Sometimes the resource concern is, I really love bees and butterflies. My resource concern is, how do I get more of those? And the answer to that is pollinator habitat, right? And so there's lots of, or a wildlife habitat. I'd like to see more deer on my land. Me personally, I got enough, but there's a lot of people that want more deer on their land. So their resource concern is, how do I get more wildlife onto my land? And so NRCS can look at that land and evaluate it and say, okay, so we have this program called EQIP that can help with this, or we have CSP or W, or if you're interested in a longer term contract, we can get you with FSA and you can see if you qualify for CRP, because it's the same resource concerns and it's the same practices. We just have a lot of different tools in our toolbox to help satisfy that and to get our producers cost share assistance to implement those practices, as well as, depending on which program you enroll in or qualify for, longer term rental rates and payments and things like that. And it all just comes down to what is best going to serve the needs of our producers and that resource concern and their overall plan for how they operate their farm.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time,
Oh,
but there is one important question I want to ask. And a lot of times people get confused as far as the FSA loan process. And a lot of people don't realize that if they apply for a loan and they're a beginning farmer, that if they have a mentorship program, that could somehow make them eligible for FSA loans. Could you explain that?
Our beginning farmer loans do have a little, an odd, I consider it odd anyway, little caveat that you have to have 3 years of experience in order to qualify for that loan. And I know to a lot of people, it's like, well, why do you call it a beginning farmer loan if I have to have 3 years of experience? But there are various ways of meeting that qualification. And there's not a one size fits all answer to that question. I always recommend that if you are at all interested in one of our loans, that you meet with a loan officer. So we have loan departments in 16 of our service centers. All 120 counties are covered. You can meet virtually, in person, by phone, or whatever. A lot of people will just call up and say, I'd like a loan packet. Well, it's a lot. It's government, it's loans, it's a lot. The easiest thing to do is just to call the office that services the area where you have your land and sit down and have a conversation with one of our loan officers, because like I said, there are multiple ways of meeting that 3-year qualification. Sometimes education, various different types of job experience can qualify there. And as far as a mentor goes, all of our loans are considered supervised credit. And so there's a little bit of a supervision there, and there is some mentorship. And I cannot say with 100% certainty either way how that works into that 3-year experience qualification. So I just recommend that you meet with a loan officer. On that farmers.gov website, there is that service center tool that I mentioned at the top of the call. Also will tell you, it will tell you your FSA service center, your NRCS service center, your loan service center, and your RMA service center all on one page for every county in the state.
So is there anything that y'all would like to share with farmers or have them to take, in consideration or look at when they're going into these offices? Some information that, programs that you all think they should be interested in and look into more, or just certain questions, or, like one thing that I see a lot of is irrigation. And a lot of people don't take in consideration is if they're using a water hose, watering their farm, they don't see that as irrigation. So that's what I want to close with, like certain things that you all have seen that people don't take note of that they should mention when they go into these offices.
yes. And I know we're running out of time, and maybe Angela can kind of cover 2 things for you real quick with beginning farmers. Of course, with NRCS, a lot of our programs is going to, which I understand why we call it beginning farmers, but it's also kind of funny because it says 10 years or less. But then for some of our stuff, it says we need 3 years history. Well, if I've been farming for 3 years, it's nevertheless, that's just the government. So I'm not gonna go there. But yes, to your point. So if you have a farm or your garden or whatever it is that you're doing, and you watering it with a hose, or you just bringing a bucket, however, that's irrigation. And so you just want to make sure that you capture that you say that, because some people think, okay, irrigation means I gotta have a sprinkler system or some kind of stuff like that. No, just how are you getting water to your crop or whatever the case may be. So all of those things are very important. The other thing that most people don't know, and the reason why we do have this sister agency with FSA actually has more programs than NRCS do. Like I said, we're the technical assistance. We provide technical assistance. While a lot of times you hear people say equip, that's like the big one. People hear equip. You'll hear them say CSP, but FSA has a program department as well. They have a lot of programs that we don't have. We don't have crop insurance. We don't have all of that. You don't get no loan from us to buy equipment and all. So a lot of things, really and truly, you do want to get to know your FSA agent and talk with them. Yes, we will help you with the conservation. We'll we'll give you the technical assistance and all of those things like that. But there may be programs that you don't hear a lot about that you really need to go in that FSA office and talk to them and say, okay, as she said, this is my plan, this is what I want to do. And we can come out there and view the land and give you a plan or whatever, but then you can go back to the FSA office and say, okay, what other programs that you all might have that I don't know anything about? Or say that beginning farmer that never farmed, but just want to get started, you want to go to FSA, because that's where you get started anyway. But there's things that they may be able to tell you to assist you in getting you started. So maybe, Angela, if you want to just talk about that, maybe somebody has never farmed before, they just bought their land or they're going to use their property to start farming, kind of maybe talk them through that a little bit.
Yeah, Michael, I'm glad that you said it that way. That is a very common misconception, especially with FSA in particular, is that, FSA is for your quote big farmers or your traditional farmers, and I do a lot of outreach events and talk to people who say, well, I'm not a farmer, I raise bees. Well, yes, you are. You're a farmer, or I'm not a farmer, I sell my garden vegetables at the farmer's market. Guess what? You're a farmer, And so that is a very common misconception that we only have programs for the people who are growing large acres of corn and wheat and soybeans or tobacco, or people who run a lot of cattle and things like that. And of course, we absolutely have programs for that. But we also have programs for honeybee farmers, for farm-raised fish, for small market gardens, all the way up to huge amounts of acreage. And so I would love for people to know that there is a very good possibility we have something for your kind of farming. It may not be something that just makes a payment. It may be only when a disaster kicks in, but we cover all kinds of disasters. We have price support. We have conservation programs, as we've already talked about, and work with NRCS on theirs. So there's something out there for everyone. The only caveat, for lack of a better word, is that you be commercially producing. Now, we don't ask for sales. You just have to be intending to commercially produce, right? You're not growing a garden for your own consumption and giving the extra to your neighbors, but you're selling it at a farmer's market. That absolutely counts. Or you have a little U-pick stand or a market stand at the end of your driveway. That counts. You are commercially selling a commodity, and we probably have you covered on something. So don't think that FSA is only here for the big guys or the whatever. We cover all kinds of livestock, from farm-raised deer to cattle to just about everything. So just definitely have that conversation of, I really want to grow cut flowers. Is there anything you can do for me? Yes, we can. Let me tell you what I can do. So that's the conversations I want everybody to have with their FSA office. Don't think we don't have you covered, because we do.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael and Angela. I appreciate it. Hopefully this answers some questions. But yes, if you two could, if I could give out your information to other farmers directly, Angela. I know I can for you, Michael, but yeah.
100, yes, absolutely, you can. That's what I'm here for. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you two so much, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you,
All right.
Tanya.
All right.